Joined now by the former head of the British Army, that's General Lord Dannatt, of course. Hello, my lord. Thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. I'm guessing you would concur with what we've just heard there from Alex about the dynamics changing when winter comes.
Yes, that's absolutely right. There is a certain amount of, understandably, sort of frantic action going on at the present moment to try and get into a good position before winter changes the dynamic, changes the mobility factions or characteristics of the battlefield. But I think, as you're covering more generally, the wider issues are the ones probably of greatest concern at the present moment. Issues such as the referenda going on in those four areas. And also, I think, looking at it most broadly, the difficulties that Putin is coming under, the adverse reaction to his mass conscription. So there are many areas to watch, not just the battlefield at the present moment.
Of course, and I wanted to come on to both of those points, if you'll indulge me. Let's start with the referenda. First of all, 4 areas that are being impacted by this, illegal under international law, but of course the annexation of Crimea was also illegal. How do you see that referenda and its obvious outcome panning out?
Well, I think there are 2 obvious points to make. One is that Putin will claim that the people in those 4 areas have now spoken with their own voices and they want to be part of the Russian Federation. He will say that. The West will completely reject that. We know, because there's no independent monitoring of the elections, that they are sham, they are false, they are purely a ploy by him. So I don't think that will actually change anything on the ground. I think the concern is the extent to which Putin might choose to back up his rhetoric, that in saying that those 4 areas have chosen to join the Russian Federation, that they, the Russians, will defend those areas with all means possible. And that brings back the veiled or not so veiled threat of the use of nuclear weapons. And that obviously is concerning. And all the way through, we've known there's been a nuclear shadow over this, which Putin from time to time refers back to, trying to put a threat, a fear, understandably, in the West.
In my experience, if a man says I'm not bluffing, he usually is. What did you think?
Well, if it wasn't true, they wouldn't deny it. Yes, I know exactly what you mean, Kay. I think the thing is that the Americans and NATO are quite wisely saying, all right, yes, you can make your bluffs, you can make your threats, but we have hitherto not seen highly sophisticated and highly capable conventional weapons. And if you use some kind of nuclear weapon, yes, of course, we've got the option of responding with a nuclear weapon, but we have got conventional weapons of huge power that actually could be visited upon you. If I was in one of the Black Sea Fleet ships at the present moment, I wouldn't go to bed at night in my bunk very calmly at night. It's quite possible we could sink that complete fleet if we chose to do so.
Oh, that's quite the thought, isn't it? Talk to me about the part mobilisation that we're hearing about. We've also heard that conscription officers have been targeted, at least 17 of them so far that we know about, according to Russian media, so maybe there are even more. Part mobilisation at the moment, I'm guessing that could increase further.
Well, hitherto, the war at home in Russia has been somebody else's problem. It's been the problem of the regular army, if you like, with those who have been conscripted in the course of the last 12 months in the normal course of events. Now, with his decision to go for a partial mobilization, although actually it's rather more than that, they are pretty desperately trying to conscript anybody that they can. And the talk of calling up reservists is pretty false. It's frankly just an effort to harvest as many men as they can and put them in uniform. That process has now made it not somebody else's war, it's made it everyone's war. And the Russian people are, not entirely, but many, many Russian people are reacting adversely against it. I mean, you've only got to look at the pictures of the queues for people trying to get into Georgia, not to mention the attacks, as you just suggested, on many recruitment offices. This is deeply unpopular, and the unpopularity and the fact that it's affecting many people is now hitting home to ordinary Russians. So Putin has got an increasing problem at home of his own making. Did he have any alternatives? Actually, probably not, because for the casualties that they've taken, killed and wounded, he was running out of manpower, just as he's probably running out of virtually everything else to do with his military. He's not going to give up, he's going to double down. And this double downing is the conscription and the hoovering up of people to go into his military is causing him an increasing problem at home. It may well be his Julius Caesar moment.
But also, I did say, if a man says he's bluffing, not bluffing, he normally is. But equally, if he is painted into a corner, we should be anxious about that.
Yes, we should. But there, as I suggest, there are many dimensions to this. It's not just pressure he might think he's putting on us. It's real pressure on him. And it's also people in Russia looking at him, not just those who are against the war. There is an even more radical element that actually is against Putin because I think he's conducted the war so badly. There are sort of ultra-nationalists who may well decide the time has come for a palace coup to get rid of him because he has done so badly and frankly is an embarrassment. Of course, if that were to happen, it does beg the question, if Putin was to go, who would follow, and would that person be any better? Disappointingly, the answer is probably not.
It's always good to see you, my lord. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Kay.